everybody. Thanks very much for joining in. The presentation that we have today, that I have prepared today, is about games that we play with young learners and also other activities. We'll have a look at the plan for today's session now. So what I suggest talking about is games we play with young learners and the characteristics of these games. We will then talk about why we use games with young learners and then look at other activities we offer in our lessons, different tasks to practice language, and we will see how they are different from games. We will then focus on the difference between games we use with young learners and other activities, and we'll then try to bridge the gap. So try to see what the other activities lack and what games have. If this is fine by you, then let's start. So just a couple of words about myself. My name is Masha. I work in Moscow in the school called Novaya Shkola, where I see everything happening in English primary and also teach there quite a lot. I also am in Moscow several teacher training courses which are aimed at teachers working with young learners, and I also do some online courses. We do them with Ekaterina Stashevska, who you might also know as a young learner specialist. I do blog sometimes and write about, again, things connected with and about developing their skills, about different activities and things like that. And there is the link to the blog. You can check it out later on. I have a Delta and am now in the middle of doing a course which is called IH, Certificate in Teaching Young Learners and Teenagers. And this course I'm taking in Minsk. I put a link into the presentation so that you might to check it out. If you're interested, I recommend this course to anyone involved with young learners because it involves a lot of great important information, methodology and theory, and also combines it all with a lot of practical activities and also teaching practice, which is really, really good. So what I wanted to focus on in this webinar is the problem that I think I see quite often in young learner classroom. A lot of time is dedicated to different games and game-like activities, and we also, I think, like to use games as rewards, putting them into the end of the lesson. And during the lesson, teachers would be saying things like, please work faster, we need time for a game in the end. Or lots of teachers, I think, use games to manipulate learners' behavior, saying things like, you're being too noisy today, calm down, or you won't be playing a game with us in the end of the lesson. And so what also happens a lot is, I think, other tasks being offered in the language classroom, which are really, really different from games, which are sometimes too monotonous or too, I would even use the word, and there is a really great difference between games and those other activities. So what I'll try to do in this session today is try to talk about the best from both types and how we could combine them so that there is no great mismatch between some games that we use as a praise and between other activities that we actually put a lot of effort into and from which we actually expect a lot of learning. Let's see what I mean. So here are some popular games at which we will look first. These are games, and I have made a list of 3 most common ones. Before we look at mine, could you please type in the chat box, what games do you use with young learners? So the question is, what games do you play with your young learner students? As you can see from this slide, my First idea was memory. Ludmila offers bingo. Agree. If you're not sure about the particular name of your activity, just type up a couple of words about how you do it. Bingo is very popular. Okay. Little memo. Okay, like Palom's their memory. I have who has. Okay, game with cards where learners need to match usually pictures and then find the next partner. Running. Okay, memory games, writing, dictations, mingling activities, musical statues. Okay. Who am I? Okay. Right. So I think among your options, there are lots of real games, like I would have put in my slides things like bingo, memory, what's missing, running dictation, musical statues are very clearly games. We, of course, use them a lot and believe that they're really, really productive in terms of learning a language for young learners. Let's have a look at 3 examples and then try to draw some typical characteristics of these games. So Palmanism is probably a very well-known game. It allows you to practice with learners single words or phrases. Here in the photo, I have a memory game with single words, which are represented by pictures of different animals. So by playing this game, learners would practice and memorize words connected to animals. You can also use a Palmanism game to focus on phrases or even on sentences. For example, a game we played recently with my students, we used Palmanism cards and we used images of people, and the learners were practicing structures like he's hungry and then he's cold. So that's not a match, but this is a match. Okay? All right, Palmanism game. Just to make sure, a game is played in a pair or a group of 3, and learners take turns to open 2 cards, name them, very important, compare if they're the same, learners take them. Okay, very well. Again, let's not stay too long on it. The next would be a game that I think Anna mentioned, What's Missing, a game which is played with flashcards, big or small. Cards are, first of all, placed face up on first between 2 learners or a teacher and a class. The learners take a little time to remember the words. The teacher then asks them to close their eyes and then removes one, and then has learners guess what has been removed, saying what's missing. Yep, Natalia suggests this is also called Kim's game. Exactly. Again, very, very popular one. No need to focus on that, perhaps. We also mentioned several movement games. I think several people mentioned movement games. Can you give an example of that? Right. Okay. Movement games, anyone? Musical statues probably is a movement game. More options? Simon Says. Exactly, that's what I have on the next slide. Simon Says, of course, has lots of variations, but again, very, very popular game where one student or a teacher comes to the front, others are facing this person, and the teacher or student gives instructions saying, Simon Says, shake your hand, shake your foot, or jump, or pat your belly. And then when the players hear the word Simon Says before the when the players hear the phrase Simon Says before the verb, they repeat things. When they don't hear Simon Says, they do not repeat anything. Okay, so all these games are very, very well known, and everyone knows how to use them. Great. Can you think about what these games all have in common? What's typical of them? Yeah, Natalia adds one more game to our collection, following directions and looking for hidden treasure. Yes, quest-like games probably. So thinking about these three games, Simon Says, What's Missing, and Pelmanism. What do you think these games have in common? So probably some of these games involve, a lot of games involve movement. Can we think of some other typical features of games? If we, for example, focus on the first two games, that would be working or collaborating with other members of the group, right? We would do it in a pair or a little group of three. So something that's typical of games is collaboration. Okay. And some games involve cards. Okay. That could be typical. So games involve different objects that you can manipulate and touch them. And suggest concentration. Exactly. The games, all these games actually. The first, this one. Sorry. Yes, exactly. Concentration. All these games require the players to concentrate on the instructions or to concentrate on what they see. Exactly as Natalia says, memory is involved in the first and the second games. So learners have to remember what is under those cards in memory game and what was initially on the desk before something was removed. Okay, memory. Something else? Anne is suggesting that in some games children do not cooperate. Okay, accepted. Can you then think of what happens if children don't cooperate? In some games, players have to do it, and in some games, if not cooperation, what's this process happening between, for example, two teams or two players rather than cooperation? Right. Okay, so possibly what can happen is competition, and that's another important aspect of many different games. Let's pull all these ideas together and see how they compare to mine I had prepared before. So I think typically games have a task or a goal to achieve. Let's just check. In the memory game, what was the goal? In the first memory game, where children open two cards at once, the goal or the task to achieve is find a match and actually get as many cards as possible, right? Then secondly, games have rules which help learners go through games and offer support for what they do. Memory and concentration, exactly as you said. Lots of games require that. Strategy and logic, more typical for some games than for others. For example, in the memory game, strategy would be to remember the pairs or remember what other players open, right? Games are fun usually, they're enjoyable and light-hearted in this respect. So fun is, Simon Says, when children move and they sometimes fail to repeat the correct movement. In What's Missing, the fun part is having your eyes closed and then appear them to find things removed. Also, challenge is typical for games because they usually require a combination of a skill and chance. And so it means that for all learners, there is something unpredictable there, something they can't really be sure about, something they can't always do. Games are usually multisensory, and that's really, really important. Multisensory would mean that in a game, children can use all their senses. And in Simon Says, we see that this is mostly a kinesthetic game where children move their bodies and move their bodies in space and enjoy this aspect. Also, in Simon Says, children hear phrases, and if they change roles to be like the teacher, they also speak and so involve their auditory senses. Games involve movement, and also games involve collaboration, or as we have said, they involve concentration. So all these wonderful things are what we find in games. And these are actually the characteristics that we value in games. That's why we use games in the classroom. We know that young learners need clear goals and need a meaning that they do, that young learners need a structure to be able to complete the task. They need to understand from what to what they're moving and how they're doing that. So rules of the game offer a lot of support for that. We know that young learners like to challenge, that learners probably, and we know that children learn through multisensory activities by touching things, manipulating things physically, moving, things, listening to things, and saying things. So all these wonderful things that are found in games, do we see all of these characteristics? Do we see all of these important qualities in other tasks that we offer in the language classroom? Let's see. What are other things that we do in our lessons? Apart from games, what other things do you do in your class? Can you think about 2 or 3 examples of what else happens and type them in the chat box? For example, with my learners, we listen to songs a lot. What about you? Reciting poems. Of course, work with graded readers. I totally agree. We do the same. Okay, just waiting for a couple more answers, maybe. I'm sure this is not all we do in the language classroom. Maybe think about what happens with course book tasks. For example, while you're typing. In the school where I work, we use the course book called Academy Stars. It's from Macmillan. And so it offers a lot of little drama activities where we act out things. And offers quite a list. So listen and repeat songs and chants. Act out short dialogues. Agree. Describe pictures. Phonetic warm-up or reading activity. Grammar revision and game in pairs. Chants are great. Agreed. Yes. Big fan of chants now too. Recite poems and songs. Okay, exactly. So if we look at the list that your answers make, the list of activities that we do in language classroom, singing songs, acting out dialogues, doing grammar tasks or structure-based tasks for younger kids, use chants, use reading material. We I think sometimes by including different things in the lesson, think about different activities and games on the other thing. However, my point is that it shouldn't really be like that. We now see a list of game characteristics and see what makes games so attractive for young learners. I would say that it's fun, challenge, and clear structure. Also, perhaps movement or multisensory aspect and collaboration or competition. However, while planning a lesson, I think we very often plan activities for language learning, and then we put there a game, which will also help with support learning, but we also rely on a game to add the fun element to our lesson. My point is that it probably doesn't have to be like that. How can we possibly redress and change these balance? Let's see. Oops, sorry. A little bit stuck. Okay. So exactly as you have suggested, other different activities in the language classroom include working with a course book that is focusing on vocabulary, working with cards, working with different structures, doing a lot of pair work. So lots and lots of other activities which in which we really put a lot of expectations about language learning. So all the activities that you have mentioned and some of the activities that I have added into the slide, what are their characteristics? Can we think about, let's say, working with a course book, working with chants, songs, and cards for vocabulary? What do you think is typical about our usual classroom activities with young learners? For example, my suggestion would be that number one, these activities that we offer apart from games are very language rich. So they have a lot of repetitions of the same language, a lot of opportunities for learners to use language. Okay, so maybe that would be my characteristic of classroom activities for young learners. They are also a lot of there are also a lot of drills, so a lot of repetitions and opportunities to hear and say the same thing again, which compared to games might be a bit more, well, as we might see, drills, so more repetitive as opposed to games. Yes, okay, there is not really much competition there. Now, let's think about one more aspect. We have talked about it, we have mentioned it. So when we play, for example, a memory game, and we place the cards face down, what children have to do is actually engage their cognitive skills and engage their memory, because even though they know the words on the cards, it's really difficult to, sometimes for them, to remember the order in which cards were opened, actually to remember the places where these cards are. So games are challenging, not only because there is maybe some language there that they're not really sure about, but also because there is this cognitive challenge involved. There is this very natural element of using your memory and using actually your brain, not only to remember and say the word, but for concentration and, well, strategical planning as well. So games also offer this challenge that usually course book tasks don't really have. The same would be the example with what's missing game. Let's have a look at the list of characteristics I have put together. So activities that we use and activities are that we see in course books, for example, usually focus on controlled practice. That would be pair work, where students maybe ask each other the same question, or an information gap task where students try to get information that they don't have. Also, activities in course books or handouts are language rich, which means there is a lot of language that students can practice. In games, it doesn't often happen that way. Also, other activities are much easier to monitor and check, especially if you work with handouts or little cards. You can clearly see your learners writing things, or you understand what they're saying to each other in a pair work. You can walk around and basically check if what they're saying is correct. When there is a game, things tend to be a bit more messy and a bit more louder. We also see that different activities in course books are challenging, but not exactly in the same way as games. They can sometimes be very, very difficult for learners, and can be sometimes activities in course books could be too difficult and a little bit too complicated in terms of language. However, activities in course books and worksheets are usually very structured, so it's easy to use them. It's easy to explain learners what to do. You can do it in steps. You say, do this, learners do it, you do the next step. And so activities in course books or handouts are really easy to use in that way. And the last problem with them is that they're perhaps a bit less fun than the games as we know them. So generally, although we expect a lot from our teaching materials, like course books or handouts or copies from different resource packs, they don't have something really, really important. And something I would suggest you guess. So although many classroom activities have structure, have language to practice, have clear tasks, very often we don't see that exactly that children enjoy our activities as much as they do games. So what they very often lack is engagement, exactly. Um, and engagement is the process when learners really are in the material, they're working with it, they are focused on it, and definitely enjoying it. So what we can add then to our activities to make them more engaging for learners, to make them more meaningful for learners, and to make learners enjoy the activities as much as they do games. Let's see how we could change that. Here is the look at one of the activities that I would suggest. Let's see. So, do you work with reading materials? If you do, just maybe chat in the chat, type in the chat box and say what reading materials typically use. Okay, so the question was, do you use reading materials with your students? And if yes, what materials do you typically use? Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So stories, fairy tales, and graded readers. Agreed would be most common reading materials. Do you ever use reading texts from your course books? If yes, could you please type the name of the course book that you use and maybe mention the level? Mm-hmm. Okay, so family and friends, uh-huh. Okay. Spotlight, English World, Discover, Get Set Go. Mm-hmm. So clearly we use Supermind, So definitely we use a lot of different course books where we find reading materials. Do you generally think that reading tasks are engaging for learners? Okay. All right. So if we're thinking about the reading tasks that you typically use, do we think that they are engaging for learners? Okay, let's have a couple more answers. So Ludmila says probably not much. Katerina says reading is not trendy today, but when it's supported by video, it goes well. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make that clearly reading tasks are very, very different from games. And this is very clear. Games have this fun, light-hearted attitude. They offer engagement. Reading tasks don't seem to be so engaging. The point I'm trying to make today is that if we are working with young learners, the idea behind offering tasks for them would be to make even the boring tasks more engaging. I don't think that it means that we should offer only games or offer a lot of games in between boring tasks. But let's see how we can adapt the boring or the typical tasks a bit and make them a bit more engaging. Before we look at my example, let's refresh our understanding of what were the characteristics of games, of what were the qualities that children enjoyed so much and why they enjoyed the games. Oops. Okay, so games, as we said, have a clear task, they have rules, they use memory and concentration strategy, they're fun, they have challenge, so they're not just easy to win. Look at the cards, say bingo. No. They are multisensory, so this involves manipulation of objects. Usually for kinesthetic learners, this involves saying things, hearing things. They are sometimes involve movement, and they sometimes involve collaboration or competition. Let's see if we can play with some of these characteristics and add them a little bit to our reading task. Here is one of my suggestions. Let's see. On the left, you would see a page from the task. You would see a page from the course book that I use with my learners. It's called Academy Stars. The level 3. I'm putting it in the chat box if you're interested. Stars, level 3. Okay. As you can see, the text is not really very difficult. However, it's supported a lot by different visuals and different pictures. You're very likely to have something very similar in your course book. So a very typical reading activity. What the course book offers is look at the pictures, what does dad do, read and check. So general understanding. However, what happens on the next page is another set of comprehension activities. Read and yes or no, read and put events in order, read and answer the. So nice reading task. Is it very engaging? Probably not. My idea, let's improve this and see how we can make it a bit more engaging. First of all, let's have a quick look at the text. The text is called Take Your Child to Work Day, which is about dad, who is a firefighter, taking his daughter to his work, where she follows him on a task, and they sort of some lady who has lost her keys and can't open her flat. So the text is here, and when the students have read it, my further suggestion is to do the following. I would like them to focus on the language, so have it as a language-rich material. And I also want to make sure that they're engaged, they're in the task, they're working together, they're using the language. Let's see what is possible to offer. After the students have read the text and discussed it together, here is my little worksheet. It's super simple. Just did it in Word. And on the left, I have got some words from the story, words and chunks as well. And on the right, I have some space for learners' pictures. They then work individually. And first of all, just find the words from the sheet in the story. They find the word dad, child, a big building, at work, a woman calls. So first of all, walk with the first half of the worksheet and just find these words in the text. Usually, when I give out a worksheet like this, I give it folded so that children don't open everything and do everything at once. So give the worksheet like this. The words would be here, and children would work step by step finding the words in the text. When they have done it, what do you think happens? Of course, for this your picture column, the students work individually to draw a picture for each of the words in the text. Dad and child are easy, but then come some chunks which are a bit more challenging. Again, children have got pictures in the students' book, and they also have some little dictionary in the end of the text and can check words there. But basically, you can look at the text, find the word, look around at the pictures, understand what it is, and draw their own pictures. Activities where kids work on their own and draw pictures of words from the story. Again, if they don't understand something, raise your hand, ask the teacher, get explanation, keep drawing. What happens then is I ask students to get ready with their papers, and they then fold them back again and are left with the picture side, with the column that says your picture. They have about 20 or 15 seconds to look at their pictures, which they have completed for the text. And first of all, just in their head, say the words that for which they have pictures. So read the text, complete the handout with pictures, look at the words, put them away, remember words from pictures. What happens next is children exchange these handouts and then try to guess the words from their partner's pictures. And then, without the word section, label the pictures that they see in their partner's handouts. What happens here is that learners usually find it very, very easy to draw pictures and then to sometimes easy to name pictures from the for the words, their own pictures. But when they have to see their partner's pictures, this becomes really, really challenging. Children at this age, and actually later on, still have very funny style of drawings, and it's really difficult to understand what is drawn sometimes, especially for phrases like key under the flower, or don't worry, or a woman calls. Children end up with all sorts of funny, and trying to guess from your partner's picture what it is quite funny. This is an activity that I think actually has some characteristics that games have. Let's have a look at the list of game characteristics and decide what characteristics of games are relevant for these tasks. Okay? Let's see. One moment. Okay. Okay, so if we keep in mind the activity that we have talked about just 3 minutes ago. What characteristics do you think it has? Just compare with the list and maybe put them in the chat box. Okay. Memory, yes. Okay. Collaboration, yes, because you work with a partner. Okay. Okay. Yep, I think that, yep, thanks for your answers. I think that most of these characteristics are also typical for that actually reading task. There is a goal to achieve, so they have to complete their pictures and then guess everything that their partner has drawn. There might be not so clear rules as in, I don't know, memory game or Kim's game, but we also have instructions for this game, and there are certain stages of how we're going to do it. There is memory involved, so children will need to test their memory at some stage. Children probably won't have much strategy or logic in this task, but yes, it's fun because guessing from your partner's pictures, you hopefully find some funny pictures and see the differences between how you draw something and how your partner draws something. Then it's also challenging to remember things. Again, it's challenge connected with memory. Multisensory because it involves drawing and also talking to a partner and sometimes maybe explaining things and hearing explanations. Not much movement here, but just maybe turning to your partner, drawing things. However, it's more kinesthetic than just reading. And also collaboration where students will have to talk to each other and explain each other different things, trying to achieve the same goal. So basically, this is an illustration of how I think other activities from lessons can be put a little bit closer to games in terms of engagement. And adapting activities from coursebook in this way is, I think, really the way to improve overall lessons for young learners so that they're more engaged and that is more productive in their learning. Let's have a look at one more example, and this time I will ask you to help me enhance this task in a more engaging way. Oh. Okay, let's have a look. What we're looking at now is the activity from Kids Box 1. It's for young kids aged 6 or 7, and what it practices is prepositions. We're looking at exercise number 7, where children are asked to sing the song, and as you can see from the pictures, it uses a lot of different prepositions. There is in the box, under the book, under the chair, on the desk, next to the computer. Singing the song, usually more group task or sometimes individual when children do it in parts. Can it take about 2 minutes and share ideas how this task of singing a song and also using a picture can be adapted to become more engaging? Okay, let's have the picture of an activity here, and in the chat box I will just put some characteristics that we want to add to this activity. Okay, just take 2 minutes, think about how else you could adapt this song. What else can children do with it so that this task becomes a bit more engaging? And I'm going to write down in the chat box some aspects you might want to think about. Mm-hmm. 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 So, certain aspects to think about while adapting or improving a task in the course book is making it clearer in terms of structure, involving memory or cognitive challenge, maybe guessing things, trying to guess the cause from the but, adding more fun elements, adding multisensory elements, that is involving not only hearing or speaking, but also movement, touching things, moving things around, drawing things, of course, and also using collaboration to add this interpersonal element that games have. So Ekaterina suggests use some objects, dice or something like that, and hide it in chosen place so partner should guess. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. That would be a good idea. Like we're still waiting for. That would be a good idea to use maybe after the song or before the song, for learners to practice the language. Can we do something to combine it to offer learners while they're singing or while they're listening to the song to make it a bit more multisensory? Mm-hmm. Okay, Katerina suggests also organizing these objects in class, and students would put there and ask questions. Okay, involving art, physical movement. Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's add one more minute and then lots of ideas together and talk through possible ways to enhance this activity. So still giving about 30 seconds to people to complete typing up their answers, okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so involving some movements. I totally agree. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So several possible ideas we could use to enhance this task and change just singing the song or just listening to it to a more game-like procedure. What several ideas that I have come up with is first of all, do listen and point. So while listening, students could be pointing at the places mentioned in the song. A bit more fun even is to move around a little toy so that it's sort of visiting all the places mentioned in the song. Originally, in this book, they use the character that this song is about is Monty the mouse, and you could use a little toy mouse for students to put it in all the different places. You could also copy the page from a course book, cut out Monty, and add little Montys for individual students so they can move it around. And again, it would make the song a bit more vivid and realistic for them. Move around a little toy or copy of a character. That usually helps with listening and making it more engaging. And then what you can do is include lots of drills and of work, which I think several people have suggested to engage collaboration and fun. So what students could do then is, as you can see in the task below in exercise 8, the questions are, is Monty under the bed? No, he isn't. Is Monty under the chair? There is a game they're playing. Somebody secretly hides Monty or thinks of a place. The other partner has to guess. You can also use what Ekaterina mentioned as TPR, and students could give each other moving the maybe paper or toy Monty around the page, saying, put Monty under the book. So use some player work TPR with the language. Again, this is multisensory. This is fun because students can come up with some funny places. So put Monty under the chair, put Monty under the bed. This is usually fun for younger learners. And again, you can have children engage their memory by looking at the picture and checking what objects are there and which objects are not. So we usually say it, sorry, like students will have, sorry, typing and speaking at the same time is a bit of a challenge, it turned out. So students look at the picture for maybe 1 minute or 30 seconds. Close the book, and then one student tests the other one about the places where Monty was. So the children would remember where the question marks were. Close the books, remember in the box, under the book, under the chair, and so engage their memory and add a bit of challenge in this respect. So students look at the picture, 1 minute, close the book, remember the key places for Monty. Okay, so this is something that could be a song to surround it with different elements of a game and have students be more engaged, be more involved in the task that you're offering. So what I'm trying to say is that pretty much any classroom task could be adapted so that it has some characteristics of games. And here they are, looking at the list and comparing a task from a course book or a handout that you're planning to give against this list of characteristics is a really good idea to see what aspects you need to improve a little bit. Oops. Okay, so what it gives you in the end is the small difference between game-like activities and between games of their own and other activities you do in the language classroom. And by making this gap, this difference smaller, you're actually, I think, improving the whole learning experience for little children, because what they enjoy so much in games can be actually taken from games and put into all other activities that we're doing with learners in our classroom. What also, like one last point that I would really like to make is that even though we very often use games as reward, and we say, okay, if you do this quickly, we will play a game, we are actually decreasing the importance, decreasing the value of materials that we use with learners for teaching, for learning, and sort of signal them that this is boring and this is not interesting, but okay, please, if you just stay with me, if you go through them, I will reward you with a game. It doesn't have to be like this. And I believe that all activities we use with our young learners have to be meaningful and have to contain some elements that would engage learners. Doing that, we will be more productive with children, and we will have, I guess, less problems with discipline, less problems with involvement, and definitely less students expecting some magic end of the lesson that would be a reward for some other boring task. Doesn't have to be like that. So the final takeaway I would like you to take is that rather than offering games as rewards in the end, it's really productive to experiment with adapting materials and improving them and enhancing and improving the materials that you use for the main part of the lesson, rather than putting so much value to different games. Improve the rest of material so that the whole lesson is productive, rather than one small part the children are really, really waiting for. So this is the main part of what I was going to talk about today. And if we have some questions, I would like to answer them now. Okay, so if you have any questions about playing games or using other activities or adapting really different activities, go ahead and type them in the chat box. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's Okay, let's see that. Yeah, people are typing, so let's see what the question is. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining in. While some of the people are still writing their questions, yep, I can see some people typing. Let's have some look at a couple of activities that I think are very game-like, but can also be used with a variety of material. So talking about making different tasks game-like, what we can do is offer just a little bit adaptation from course book tasks and add a bit more variety and engagement to overall to our usual classroom activities. So several things that I think work really, really well is the activities which are which we see typically as games, but that could work with different language material too. So thinking about, for example, reading tasks that we have discussed, I think a really great option is to involve different small cards. And I think in the beginning, when we talked about games, we all agreed that using small cards is actually a really good option to um, is a really good way to is a really common way to introduce a game. So using small cards for reading tasks and for speaking tasks, I think can greatly improve student involvement. And let's see what sort of things I mean. So rather than working with a handout that you can see, for example, in the slide, a very easy thing to prepare is just use little cards. Post-it notes could work, or just keeping a block of square papers on your desk. Could be very easy if you write words from the text on the cards, and students would do practically the same, excluding maybe the drawing element, but with some TPR. So on the small papers, putting, say, 8 keywords from the text, having students, first of all, go through the cards in a pair, find the words in the text, underline them, then maybe put some pictures over here, or just say each other the translation of the word, mix the cards, and after that, mime the words to each other, guessing them with your partner. Again, it's just a little adaptation of the reading task, but can help learners treat this activity with engagement and feel that it's more fun than just some basic reading. Another thing that I think can easily work as enhancement, as an add-on to your typical reading or speaking task, is except for miming, is guessing things. So if you're working with, say, a set of words from a text, what you could do is, again, have them on cards and have students guess which word their partner has on the card. You could actually do it with songs and all sorts of other tasks from course books. For example, over here, we have got exercise number 10, which is about hide and play. So again, we see that games usually rely a lot on this guessing element and trying to find different things. And what students could do is focus on the vocabulary, use little cards with vocabulary that they're focusing on, and then one partner would take one card from the pile, and the other would be guessing what the secret card is. So again, just adding one more task before or after or in the middle of a coursework activity could change the dynamic of the task and turn it into a more fun and game-like variation. Just maybe for the roundup, could you share a couple of your favorite games that you use in the classroom? And we will finish by looking at what elements of them we could combine with other tasks. So if you are still with us, please do share a couple of games that you enjoy playing in the classroom. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so Marina mentioned dominoes, and exactly, very clear example of a game where children match usually pictures with words or the other way around, but with young learners, we usually do it this way. Again, dominoes could be prepared on the topic you're working with, and actually dominoes can be self-made, and we can turn a reading task into a dominoes. There are a lot of templates for dominoes. So if we offer them to learners, have the text or phrases from the text in one box and then picture in the other box, this would turn the reading task into something like a game. Natalia talks about hangman, but you draw a cat, exactly. I think hangmans usually focus on random words. However, using that as a follow-up or a preparation to a dictation, you could, by that, enhance the vocabulary focus task and still work on your target language. Word searches, yes, all right, somebody else is typing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So yes, Natalia also mentioned practicing spelling with the game, and again, spelling I think is the area where you can add a lot of different small variations to make the whole task more exciting. I think we do spelling with different colors of pens, spelling in different shapes, and also children prepare short tasks for each other for spelling games like spelling snake and also um, spelling word searches like for each other. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Very good. Yes. Okay. So somebody has mentioned a further step, which is games. All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Okay. So thanks very much for your contributions. Let's see what. Right. Somebody else is typing. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So thanks very much for your contributions today. Just to recap what we have talked about today, it's making sure that we offer a lot of varied classroom tasks which have elements of games in them, rather than putting all fun into our game activities and sort of spreading the engagement factor throughout the whole lesson, rather than rather than putting it into just one activity which we announce as fun and take it from other tasks. Doesn't have to be like that. So try adapting your materials throughout the lesson. We're also going to I'm also going to share some ideas on how you can possibly adapt your different tasks in the special magic file that we're going to send out after this presentation. And if you don't have any further questions, thanks very much for joining in. That would be it. Thank you.